Hi there, welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to give you guys a couple tips. I was working on some journals and there's one tip that I really want to give you guys, and I thought, well, I need to make this into a 5-tip journal making thing. So the number one tip at the last is my very favorite tip, and we'll get to that. And I thought, while I'm doing this, I'll just flip through some books. These are some of my Ephemera books on Amazon, and I thought I'd just flip through them while I'm talking about my tips. And so we give you guys something to look at, and if you've never seen my Ephemera books, maybe you'd be interested in them. If you don't have a printer, some of these are nice to have. So my top, well, not top, but I have 5 tips that I use all the time in making and building junk journals. And a lot of the tips that I've found, or that I've come across, is come across from videos from you guys, from the thousands of videos that I've watched on YouTube, and picked up something here and there. So my number 5 tip is to watch the page edges. And what I mean by that is, when you're building a journal, especially when you're building a one signature journal, when you put all the pages together, the edges come out from the side of the journal. I'll show you on a journal I'm working on right now. So when you put it together, these edges poke out, and you have to cut off those edges. So when you get papers or digital papers, you want to make sure that you're considering the edges, because you're not going to have this much edges. Now I'll show you. This one is not edged yet, and this one is another one I'm working on at the same time. This one I just cut flat. And by the time you get to the center page, you're cutting off quite a bit. So you want to take that into consideration if you have some pretty things on the edges. So when you cut the edges, you cut less from here, and the more that you get to the middle, the more you're going to cut off. So you also want to make sure that you make your signature and have all your papers where you want them before you start cutting. Because if you decided, oh, I want to put this one in the middle, it's going to be way shorter, or no, actually be way longer. So I always make sure I have all my papers exactly the way I want them, and then I start cutting the edges. Because by the time you get to the middle, you cut off quite a bit. And then you also want to make sure when you're looking at digitals that you consider what's on the edge, or how far it's recessed on the edge, because you're going to lose some of your pretties by cutting this stuff off. So watch your paper edges. That's one tip. Then the next tip is to use a big book to make holes with. What I mean is, when I'm doing my signatures, instead of getting a fancy wooden block or anything like that, I get a big, thick book, a dictionary. I've been using dictionaries, and I open it up to the middle, and then when I'm going to poke my holes into my signatures like this, I poke them into the groove, and that makes this go down and makes it straight too, so you're not angled this way or angled this way. You're right in the middle. So I use a big book to poke my holes in my signatures. And even if you just wanted to poke your holes in your signatures like this and not into the cover too, because you were starting out and you were going to poke the cover later, you still could use a big book to center your signature. So that's one thing that I use every single time that I'm building journals. I use a big book to make holes, and I just buy a garage sale 25-cent book, just a big one. So I've gone through one already. Once you poke the holes in there, the binding starts getting loose and you have to end up going to get another one. So then the next one is use wax thread. Now when I first started, I wanted to save some money. Plus I think I was having trouble figuring out where to find wax thread at. So I was trying to use thread without wax. Man, is that hard to make a signature. For one thing, it like slides. When you don't have wax, it slides. And for another thing, when you're trying to do the signature and you're trying to do the last hole, when you come around with your thread into the last hole, you already have a thread in that hole and you're trying to put another thread in that hole on the other side of it. So wax thread really helps. It helps when you're tightening it up because it grabs. And you can either buy wax thread already waxed, or you can also buy a little waxer that will wax whatever thread that you have. Now I've done that before too, and that's not really very hard. So I always use wax thread, and plus a lot of the wax thread is like the right thickness. So like if you're worried to try to get the right thickness, what kind of thickness should you use? Most of the wax threads out there are about the right thickness that you would want that to be. So that's my number 3. Just finished going through this book here. So you see, these are pretty nice ephemera books. So my number 2 is check once, check twice. The pages are the right side up. Now I don't know if you guys have ever sewn in one that's upside down, but you want to check the writing. Now some of this paper, this collage paper, has little pieces of writing in it, little collage pieces, and you want to check those too. You want to make sure that those are the right side up. And you always, right before you sew in, you go through one more time and make sure that your pages are right side up, that none of them are upside down in there, because then you'd have it all sewn in, and it's really hard to re-sew one. It's really hard to take one out and then start sewing it again. So you always want to check several times to make sure your pages are right side up. And then we're getting to the whole reason for this video. Is I was making my Jane Austen journals. I was making 2 of them at the same time, and I was doing this one thing that I've been doing ever since I first heard it, and that is my number 1 tip: mirror journal pages. What that means is you make 2 of everything. So if you're going to do a journal page in the front, you're going to decorate this journal page. You decorate that one, you decorate it in the back too. A lot of times I'll decorate it with the same thing. So if I'm going to put pocket here, I'll put a pocket. Oh, that's not actually the last page. I'll put a pocket here. You don't have to do that. You could do a little differently. You could do a little different pocket. But when you're making journals and you're going through the front, you always lose your momentum by the time you get to the middle and start to get to the end. And then you're always trying to think of, what can I put on these journal pages? This is my number 1 favorite tip that I learned from watching a YouTube video years ago, is to mirror the journal pages as you're going along. So when you're even making the pockets, like you're going to make pockets beforehand, you're going to cut out some pockets beforehand, you make 2. I have done things where I put a doily on one page and then I put a different lacy pocket, like a punched out side pocket, on another page. So it wasn't a doily on the front and the back, but it was something on each page, so that by the time I got to the middle, I already had the back done. And it made it way, way easier than trying to think that up all the time. I've cut some stuff out of these books and used them already. So I wanted to show you one in here. So those are my tips. Anyways, where's that one? This seed catalog. I was using these. At the back I made them all small. and I was using these. I was actually cutting out the flowers to use on stuff. So that's kind of useful. You can cut out some of the flowers if you don't want to use the whole thing, because you can't ever decide what size to make things. So I try to put different sizes in these books too. Anyways, that's another video. So there's my 5 tips. I hope they help you make your journals like they've helped me make my journals, make it easier. It can be hard to decorate. One of my hardest things to do is decorate journals. So that's why I love this tip the best. And I hope you guys have a great day. And thank you so much for stopping by. If you have any questions, please leave a comment and I will answer it. And you guys take care.